The insert knot command is a way for you to add more detail into an existing curve by adding more knots or edit points into it. To show this off, I'm going to start off by creating a curve using the EP curve tool so that I only have 2 edit points, which we can see here. If I switch down to edit points, I have 1 at either end of the curve. You can find the insert knot command under edit curves like so. Let's go ahead and open up its options. And we don't have really all that many options to look at here. First off, we can control the location where knots, or edit points of course, will be inserted, either at a given selection or in between selections. Let's just start off with at selection. And you can use this by selecting a curve point, like so, and clicking apply. And now if I come down to edit point, you can see that we have a new edit point right here. We just inserted. Let's go ahead and undo that. You can also add multiple points to a given location. So I can say curve point here, 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 like so, and I can click apply. And now if I come back down to edit points, notice everywhere I had a curve point selected, I've now added a new knot or edit point. You also have the ability to change the multiplicity, or the number of knots that are inserted at a given location. You don't just have to have one knot in one spot on your curve. The more knots you have, the sharper your curvature is going to be. For example, if I grab curve points and I choose this point right about here on the middle of the curve, and we set our multiplicity up to 3, and I click apply, notice it looks like I have one knot here in the middle of my curve, but as I pull up, look at this sharp curvature I have. That's because I have multiple knots all stacked on top of one another, and I can prove it. If I grab one knot at the end of this curve, press the right arrow key, notice I jump to the next edit point, hit right again, down here, result, edit point number 2, but I haven't moved. Hit right again, edit point number 3, you can see down here, but we're still right in the middle of the curve. And finally, edit point 4 takes us all the way to the curve. So we have extra edit points all stacked up on top of one another to allow us to have more curvature, or actually kind of sharper curvature, if you will. Probably a better way to put it. Now, you can also choose to insert knots in between selections, which is very handy if you need to evenly space out certain knots. For example, I can grab existing knots. Let's grab edit points here and here. And we can choose between selections, and then the multiplicity changes to number of knots to insert. Would you like to insert 3, 4, and you can go very high with this. This number is going to control how many knots are inserted in between these two knots, and if you increase it higher than 1, you're going to get evenly spaced knots throughout. So if I set this to 10 and click apply, come down to edit point, I now have 10 new knots evenly spaced out in between these. So a very nice way to add new detail to my curve. Let's go ahead and undo that. Now, if you choose in between selections, and let's set this down to just something like 2, and you use curve points, like for example, I use a curve point here and a curve point here, and click apply, you'll get something kind of interesting. You're going to get new knots at the actual locations of the curve points you selected. You'll also get the 2 knots that you asked to insert in between. Just keep that in mind. Now, you can use Keep Original on this kind of in an interesting way. If you switch on Keep Original, and let's just go back to at selection for sake of simplicity, and we'll set multiplicity down to 1. Oh, also, I'm sorry, I almost forgot to mention this. Multiplicity, we have the option to set to or increase by. You can think of this like absolute or relative. If I set curve points like so, and I have this set to a multiplicity of 1, or let's say 2 in this case, if I hit apply, I have just inserted 2 edit points at this current location. If I want to, though, I can choose increase by instead. And this means that no matter if there's already a knot in this location, it's going to add this many knots to whatever happens to be there. So if I knew there was already a knot right here at this parameter spot, then I could add more knots to it in this manner. Just another way to look at it. Now, I was talking about how you can use history in an interesting way. Let me set my multiplicity down to 1. And we'll choose a curve point, say, right about here. Notice Keep Original is on. Now that I'm using Keep Original, I can also use the Show Manipulator tool. Hit the T key, and I can control where on the curve this knot was inserted after the fact. So a very, very handy little option there. That's about it. It's just a way for you to add more detail to a curve with a lot of different controls so that you can have the detail evenly spaced out. If you want to add a lot of detail, you can add it at certain areas. You can add multiple knots in a given area if you need more control or more of a corner at that part of the curve. And that's really going to be about it. So that's going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.